The Jewish people, chosen people, and yet not evangelical? If you're chosen, wouldn't you be evangelical to have everybody believe what you believe, as the two other major religions do? Listen in, and I want to hear your comments.
I have another question for you. Why don't you want me to be a Jew, or do you?
I don't care.
Yeah,
so
why?
Why? Because
I want you to be Catholic, obviously.
Right, no,
yeah.
and by the way, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Like, this is what I've always said to my Catholic friends, my Protestant friends.
Yeah.
As long as you're coming at me with a book and not a sword, that's great.
And they're not being annoying and
exactly.
just berating you or something like that. But.
I mean, even if you want to be annoying about it, that's fine. Like, you care enough about my soul that you want me to be saved. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's much appreciated, and we'll find out in the overtime period who is right and who is wrong. But
wait a second. You appreciate that people are evangelical and trying to take Jews away from their Judaism? I don't appreciate that. I don't appreciate. Believe what you want, but go out missionizing, saying prayers for Jews so that they should return their soul to some other faith? I think he's being a little off base on that. Let's continue.
Why don't you? Because we talked about earlier about the only reason you should believe something is because it's true.
Right.
You presumably believe I believe falsehoods, and you believe true things. So why shouldn't you encourage me to abandon some of my beliefs and adopt some of yours?
Right. So doctrinally, what Judaism believes is that the commandments of Israel were only given to Israel.
Okay.
Meaning that the 7 Noahide commandments that I referred to earlier, those are incumbent on all of humanity because they're given to Noah, right before the Jews actually arise as an independent family and people. Mm-hmm. And so those apply to everyone. So if you're not a member of the Judaic tribe, then those rules don't apply to you. So the 613 commandments that apply to me are boiled down to 7 for you. Mm-hmm. And so what that means is that if you want to join in to do those commandments, like, that's not required of you. Like, sure, you welcome if you want, but certainly Judaism doesn't feel the necessity to force
to evangelize and to bring people in.
Because Judaism doesn't actually suggest being chosen doesn't mean being superior, right? I think this is one of the great misnomers of sort of history, is that when the Jews say that they're a chosen people, what they mean is that they're better than everyone else. And it's like, no, in the same way that if I choose my oldest child to take out the trash, that doesn't mean that my oldest child is better. It means I need my oldest child to take out the trash. Like, that's not the same thing.
Okay.
I take a little issue with that too, because chosen people isn't that we're taking out the trash. We're chosen to be the conscience of humanity. We're chosen to be the light unto the nations. We're chosen to bring the word of God to the nations of the world. Yes, you do not need to become Jewish in order to have salvation, or better yet, not salvation as much as to be good in the eyes of God. If you fulfill, as Ben said, the 7 Noahide laws of all of humanity as given in the Torah, so then you're good in God's eyes, and that's what's important. And that is our responsibility for all of humanity, to follow that dictate. So it's the metaphor of taking out the garbage kind of minimizes. No, we have actually a great task, and a formidable task, of course. And in some of the beliefs that others have might be counter to the 7 Noahide laws. But let's go further into the conversation.
And so the sort of idea that Jews are, in their own minds, superior to everybody else because it is incumbent on them to do that, that's obviously not how Jews think, especially because there are a bunch of commandments that are incumbent on men in Judaism that are not incumbent on women in Judaism. Does Judaism then believe that women are of lesser value than men? I mean,
but apart from little laws, there must be like metaphysical things that you hold as true that you would like me to believe. Or at least you would like me. I don't mean to be confrontational, but you would clearly want Christians to realize that Christ was not the Messiah, that he didn't. Maybe you don't want that, or maybe it doesn't bother you. You don't care one way or the other.
Right. So the way,
but like when I look at Mormons, I'm like, look, I love you, and this isn't a criticism on you directly, but Joseph Smith was not a prophet. My Muslim friend, I love you, but like Muhammad was a liar or a lunatic. Maybe he was possessed, but he wasn't a prophet.
Right. So
I have to say that in love, and so I would wonder. And maybe it's just that you have a public platform, and so you don't want to get into that to offend people unnecessarily. But
it really isn't that. I mean, the Jewish doctrine is that as long as you believe in God, as long as the actual 7 the actual 7 commandments to non-Jews are believe in God, no eating the flesh of living animals, actually one of them. You have to establish courts of law, no murder, no sexual sins, no idolatry, and I believe no stealing. It's like seven of the 10 of the big 10, right?
Yeah.
Like we don't actually believe that non-Jews are even bound by the 10 commandments, right? They're bound by the 7 commandments in Judaism.
Hey.
So it like boils even further down. So how you believe in God is of little consequence to me, so long as you do believe in the monotheistic God.
What if I believe in a God that lives on top of a mountain and whose name is Jeffrey?
So if he doesn't,
and I say that's God,
if he doesn't fulfill the fundamental properties of God, then that doesn't count.
Which would be what?
So the fundamental properties of God would be that He's in charge of the universe, creator of the universe, master of the divine law, all powerful, all knowing, all loving would probably be in that category. There's debate in sort of Jewish circles as to whether you have to believe that God gave the commandments at Sinai, whether that's a debate between a couple of major rabbis, Maimonides included, as to whether if you discover those 7 laws on your own, but you don't believe that they were given at Sinai, does that count? Right? So there is some doctrinal debate there, but in general, the basic idea that there is only one path to God in the same way that there is in Christianity.
I see.
That doesn't exist in the same way.
What about like a Mormon who believed that God was once a man like we are? Like, would you go, okay, I'm not saying you've given much thought about this, but would that be a place where you'd be like, no, I need to evangelize you, or not that word, but I need you to come to believe in God differently than you currently do?
So the answer.
So let me pipe in over here. First of all, it's not like I have a personal need. I think in other faiths they have a personal need, and that reason is it's their salvation. If I can bring you to my faith, boy, do I get brownie points for that. Especially for Christians to bring a Jew to their faith. Oh boy, what a place in heaven you get. We don't look at it that way. That is so self-serving. We look at it is that we have a duty, an obligation to bring morality, to bring a God consciousness to the world. And a God consciousness is that we have a personal God that we should connect to, that God gives us a purpose for our lives, that we have to fulfill it because God deems us unique in our purpose, and it's important to Him, our fulfillment of that purpose. And we are here as a light unto the nations to help people to recognize that. That's the Tanya I teach every day, that I have probably, 50% of the people that come and learn with me daily, Tanya, that are Jewish, because they're getting a sense of God's need of them and how they should better fulfill their purpose. That's what we're here for. Not for the brownie points, not to get to score one, but to help another, because that's, again, our duty. Let's go back.
Answer to me is I'm going to go with the I don't know answer. like pretty much everything.
You both get 3.
There's like major debate on all of these things. And there's a debate for a long time in Judaism over whether, say, Trinitarianism is monotheism or if it's not monotheism. Right, like that's like that was a serious debate in Judaism. It's come down on the side of it's monotheism.
Okay.
So I wouldn't know the answer. Right. No. And by the way, I appreciate it.
Oh boy.
Currently do.
So the answer to me is I'm going to go with the I don't know answer. like pretty much everything.
You both get 3.
There's like.
So let me pipe in over here. Actually, if you take the Trinity literally, so then that is more than one God. And that is idolatry for a non-Jew. But if you take it figuratively, then it's not idolatry for a non-Jew. For a Jew, it actually is idolatry, but for a non-Jew, it's not idolatry. Interesting distinction. Yes, let's continue in the conversation.
Major debate on all of these things. And there's a debate for a long time in Judaism over whether, say, Trinitarianism is monotheism or if it's not monotheism. Right, like that's like that was a serious debate in Judaism. It's come down on the side of it's monotheism.
Okay.
So I wouldn't know the answer as far as Mormon doctrine specifically. Let's put it this way: if you're talking about like paganism, Judaism would have a problem with paganism. So let's say that you believed that there were 100 gods and they all ruled over different aspects of humanity. Then Judaism would say that does not fulfill the 7.
And if you were in dialogue with somebody like this, would you feel obligated to try to help divest them of that error so that they could be saved?
Sure. I mean,
Cool.
so then I would feel obligated to actually, in the same way that if somebody believed that adultery was morally acceptable, I would feel the obligation to say, well, no, adultery is not morally acceptable, and it's better for you to not believe that.
Hey, thank you so much for watching. Before you go, do us a favor, leave a comment, let us know what you thought of the video, like, and...
So, you noticed, do you feel the obligation to help that person to be saved? Saved for the afterlife. And there is a truth for that. But it's more about, again, fulfilling the purpose that you were created for. That is the notion. That the purpose is down here in this world, and we're here to be a light unto the nations, to help everybody to fulfill their purpose. So with that, I invite you daily, Monday through Fridays, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, to learn live Tanya on youtube.com/Tanya Rabbi, and get a taste on teachings that touch all of humanity to make us more human, to make us even more divine. I look forward to having you join.